Hey, I'm Dex, and this is a casual look at Wasted, a post-apocalyptic pub crawler. It's a roguelike, or roguelite, FPS, developed by a man whose name I absolutely cannot pronounce, quite frankly. And I think it's pretty much a one-man team as well. Mr. Pudunakane, it's something like that. I really cannot pronounce it. I have no idea how to say his name, I'm afraid. Published by Adult Swim, which means it's a very normal game, of course. And it takes heavy inspiration from the Fallout series. That is Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, so the Bethesda Fallout games. Not so much Fallout 1 and Fallout 2. And this is in the way of setting and some gameplay mechanics, as well as just direct references to the games. Now, in just a moment, I'm going to jump in the game and show you what it's all about. But first, I will take a very quick look at the option menu as per usual to show you what we have available here. But it shouldn't take too long because it isn't all too exhaustive. When it comes to gameplay, we have some options for view bob, iron sights, hiding the crosshair, aim assist for the joypad, and so on and so forth. A few basic gameplay customizations, essentially. Audio, we have separate audio options for sound effects and music, which is nice, but not more than that. The display options are reasonable, I think. I don't think you need all too much here, because most most computers would probably be able to run this game, I would think. It's not particularly taxing, as you might expect, but there is a few options still. You can turn off and turn on SSAO, for example. We have some anti-aliasing, I don't know why it's on medium. Anisotropic filtering. You can customize your FOV, which is good. It's always nice to have customizability when it comes to the field of view, for those who might get motion sick, but otherwise, wonderful. There we go. That's pretty much that. Input, you can disable or enable your gamepad and customize your look sensitivity, and the key rebindings are completely rebindable, which is very nice. Wonderful. That's pretty much it. Well, it probably has most of the essentials, I think. Most of them. At least those which you might expect from a single-man developer indie development. That was a very eloquent way of putting that, wasn't it? Anyway, I'm going to jump back into the game. I've gotten a little bit in, so I should be able to show you most of the core mechanics and most of the mechanics in general that the game has to offer. So let's do just that. Let's go. Back into the action we go. Okay, welcome to my humble abode. It is beautiful, and I will not have you arguing with the aesthetics of it. It is absolutely magnificent in every single way. It's an acquired taste, I assure you. So, this is your kind of home base, as you might expect. This is the place you will be able to gather items, as well as stash a few money things. It's not money, it's TP, in fact. What does TP stand for? Why, it's toilet paper, of course. Yes. This game uses toilet paper as a currency. It's a bit of a taste of the comedy in this game, I suppose. So, and you have a computer as well, which is wonderful. I can check my mail. It's useless. But I do have a little bit of stats. Deaths. Yes. So you can die in this game. Goodbye. Yes. So why do I need this house, and how does this work with the whole idea of permadeath? Well, this game takes the idea of permadeath as a bit of a hybrid as some other games do, perhaps somewhat similar to a game such as, for example, Sunless Sea, or to some very, very minor degree, although not all as significant, Mother Gunship. Now, Mother Gunship doesn't really have permadeath at all. It is very forgiving. Sunless Sea does, and this one does as well, but you do have the ability to gain up a little bit of a stash either way. It is your character that dies, not everything you have. If you die in the game, you will lose the abilities your characters have acquired, and you will get a new character. This new character is going to take over your current character's house, and then acquire, of course, all the things that are inside. A little bit like a legacy in Sunless Sea, I suppose, to some degree. And now Sunless Sea is a completely different game and works very, very differently as well, of course, but it's the same kind of principle. You get to keep some of the things that you have acquired since previously. It has some degree of permanence in that sense. And you can fill your house with different things you collect through your runs. And you can only escape through your runs through a mechanic of drinking certain dubious cocktails, you might say. Okay, so I'm going to go to the town, which there is one. There's a car here, and I'm gonna show you what's going on there. So we go to the Oni Express terminal, and I can show you what's happening. Here we are. It's night, by the way. There is a day-night cycle, which has a real practical impact as well, in fact, because certain buffs and debuffs does have a time limit to how long they last, as well as certain offers. You can actually sleep it off. Alternatively, you can sleep to get a new one. So every day you will have the ability to get a hangover buff thing from this guy. You can also talk to this guy. This guy will allow you to do a special kind of run, and you can do one of those, I believe, every day, if I'm not mistaken. And he tells the story, so it's a daily run, basically. He tells the story of another explorer, cooler, wastelander person. And you will be able to get one of the items that waster finds in their run. Hello, yes, thank you. To this character and transfer it like that. But it's a daily run, and you will get a score on the end of that. You can talk to this guy. And he... And he can do that. Yes, so this guy can give you a buff. Nothing right now. He will give you a buff. Every day he can have a different kind of daily. Otherwise, he has the standard. And the standard is basically you can take a drink, and they will give you some kind of buff that you get on your run. Because cost, of course, a little bit of a very, very small amount of money. It doesn't cost a lot at all. 30 TP is a very small amount. But it costs that. And these are empty, of course. And you will get a temporary buff for the next run. And the next run is going to then have this buff, which usually is something like you can get a little bit boost to your stats, or a little bit of a boost to your damage reduction, or to your damage dealing, or something like that. Let's actually have a look at the character menu. So here we are. These are your buffs, or my permanent buffs. You get these when you escape from some kind of run or some kind of cooler. And the coolers are essentially the dungeons in this game, and they are this game's equivalent of the Fallout vaults, basically. So when you go and escape from your dungeon run, you will have to do that through taking a drink, and it'll give you a hangover. As you see here, it's hangover and buzzes. These are the hangovers, and the hangovers they can give you something bad, but usually if you get them a little bit further down through the cooler, so if you don't take perhaps the first one you find, usually it's a useful thing. So for example, this one, which gives me a little bit more accuracy when I am crouched. Or this one, which gives me a tiny bit of health regeneration. It can be other things as well, such as stat buffs or ammo carrying capacity or something. So the hangovers will give you certain buffs, and you will be able to collect these if you die, or if you use the toilet. Yes, comedy, ba-da-da-da. You will get rid of these. You can get rid of these through that. So either, well, you die, or you use the purging mechanics, which will remove them as well. Here are the stats. You can get these as well, of course. You don't usually get too much stats through hangovers. Some hangovers can give you like 1+ stat, so it's basically a permanent stat upgrade. But otherwise, your stats are primarily going to come from buzzes, especially in the beginning, which are those temporary buffs. Eagle Eyes is a very, very good daily buff, so the cocktail of the day gave me increased shoot, which is this. And I also chose to get a defense up, and I chose a cocktail shoot up as well. So you have 3 choices, basically, when you make your cocktail. And there's 1, 2, 3. This time I took the daily, but the daily you can also choose not to take the daily and take a standard buff as well, if you would choose. Although since the daily will actually vary, sometimes it can actually be bad. It could be something like minus to your stats or something, which is obviously not ideal, in which case you probably shouldn't take it. But yeah, it will give you different things depending what you choose in your blend, simple as that. Here are the stats, and they will give you different attributes, of course. Shoot is kind of obvious. It gives you damage to target limbs, weapon accuracy, as well as just increasing my damage with guns. It makes me better at shooting, no shit, right? Hit is kind of similar. It makes me better with melee weapons, but it also gives me a little bit resistance against knockback, as you see, as well as a little bit of armor, 0.5 armor per point. Oblit, this is the explosive, so it increases the explosive damage, but also gives me a little bit of explosive resistance. I give a little bit bonus to, knockback, so it has a few, let's say, secondary attributes as well, and that goes for basically all these. And then we have a few of these derived score as well. You can get movement speed up, you can get armor, you can get multipliers and critical chance and stuff as well. So these are the primary skill points, I guess. And then we have these. Basically, the primary can give derived score, but you can get derived score directly as well. For example, 4 of this, you will have 2 armor. But I also have the ability to get armor or speed through things like my equipment, which I have right here. So you can get them from different sources, essentially. But yes, an armor is of course, damage resistance, as you might expect.
Wonder who's running the skellies.
Yeah, man. And everybody is a drunk waste of time, apparently, around here. So there you go. And I don't mean quest for that guy. And I can talk with Dick. I don't really want to do that right now. Yeah, so the comedy in this game, I guess, it's a specific taste. Some people will like it, some people will not. It's not really my taste, but I don't have anything especially against it. It doesn't really shove it in your face too much. It doesn't have long dialogues you have to listen to. You can go out of your way to talk to people. That's fine. It allows you to do that. But it doesn't force you to sit and listen to long, drawn out and obnoxious, unskippable cutscenes and dialogues and stuff like that. This is the road courier. This guy.
Comes along, you must ship it.
Yes, I'm sure. Will be able to acquire things I've lost. So if one of my guys die, one of my cactus, this guy can bring me some of his stuff. He also have this thing. This is a box which you will find inside a cooler as well. If you fill that box, it's a transfer box. So using that, I can transfer things that I find in my run out of the run and to this place or to my home to, well, get items out of the coolers and into my house and collect items that way. Or in theory, the other way around. So I'm going to head to a cooler. I think I'm just gonna go CA1, honestly. So, well, I could actually go to CA2 as well. That's not necessarily a bad idea. That's not, there's multiple coolers. It goes up to like 5 or 6, I believe. Let's just go to cooler 2, I think. It shouldn't be too difficult anyways, and I have a really good buff. Oh, well, I might as well just let you hear a little bit of the dialogue, I suppose. And you'll be able to hear a little bit of the music in the background as well. So, yeah, I'm just gonna be quiet here.
Why, I'm just so happy that in spite of it all, in spite of all the bombing, you and others like you found a way to survive out here. I was beginning to think that we were the last ones, trapped forever in that evacuation colony. More survivors? Why wouldn't there be? Of course, we had to vaporize a few disgusting humans to secure the premises at first, but humans, it turns out, are surprisingly vulnerable to concentrated laser fire. Then, years later, came the other ones. Resourceful, unpredictable. These humans were more cunning than the last. The servicemen nearly wiped us out, they did. They came into our colony, speaking an indecipherable tongue, destroying us for our parts and stealing our survival supplies. They kept us suppressed and trapped us in the colony for an uncountable number of years. Not even time travel itself was enough to escape their tyranny.
Alright, so that's a little bit of a taste of the dialogue as well as the music there. And you can of course continue reading it in the background if you would so please. It's very interesting music, I have to say. It's this kind of calm, simplistic electronic music. It doesn't have that many tones, it's not complex. But it's kind of nice. I do like it. It certainly isn't bad. I guess perhaps it's Spartan. You know, it's not complex, it's rather repetitive, but it's kind of nice to have it like kind of in the background. I think it fits rather well for the setting as well. It's not my favorite kind of music, and I certainly wouldn't listen to it by itself. But combined with the game and the setting of the game, I don't know. I think it fits rather well. It certainly isn't bad, but it's rather unique though. Can't really put my finger on really what genre it is, honestly. But if you happen to know that, then do let me know. It would be very interesting to hear, because I really can't quite define it myself. Okay. He has had his sensors knocked out, so he did not realize who I were. How unfortunate. Very sneaky of me not to tell him, was it not? Of course. Okay. So let's just enter into the cooler and start a run, shall we? Let's go. I didn't expect this actually. I thought I had already had a few runs, or just a couple at least, runs in this cooler, but it seems that was not the case. But let's be careful. So this game does have stealth, as it happens. And I would like to have one of these, I guess. Sure, why not? That's fine. Perhaps you have something? No. Oh well. never mind. Let's put this on, at least. It gives me a bit of armor. And yes, it gives me, of course, direct armor. As in the direct armor stat, as opposed to Oblit. Which, of course, will also give me armor, since that's one of its secondary attributes. And yes, all the enemies drop TP when they die, of course, because why not? So that's very useful. I wonder... Those are dangerous, by the way. That's a mine, as you see. So this game has... I don't know why I picked up a mug. But yes, you can pick up mugs. Those are interactable items. Yeah, so this game takes a lot of inspiration from Fallout, as you might see, especially in the gameplay, to a sense, in a sense. One of the aspects is, of course, that a lot of the items are interactable, both the miscellaneous and the all the kind of drawers and stuff. Another one is this. Yes, you can play it both third person and first person, if you would so like, much in the way that you can do so in Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, if you would so like, switch to third person whenever you please. So I guess this isn't a first person roguelike, it's a first or third person roguelike, but I usually play the first person. As well as the idea that you have this sneaking mechanic, of course, which also is something that exists in, for example, Fallout. And it actually looks very different, very similar as well, doesn't it? Giving you a little bit of a... Oh. Giving you a little bit of a hidden indicator as well. That little text box looks very similar to the one you find in Fallout 3 in New Vegas. Yes, a deadly presence indeed. So if you do not hurry up, you will get hunted by a heavily armored bastard with machine gun. That was close. Yes, it was very close. As you see, that it's a little bit counter by the map. Okay, so I'm done now. Good. When that counter reaches 0, they will release the purifier, which is this big giant armored dude that will try to murder you. He enters through the same entrance as you did, really. And he will try to hunt you down and murder you. And simple as that. He moves rather slowly, has a powerful machine gun. You can kill him, but he takes quite a lot of shots, if you wish to do so. He actually has a minigun, not a machine gun. And I am now hunted. He will slowly move towards you, basically. As you see that little skull icon, that's the purifier. And you do not necessarily want to fight him, especially early on, but later on you can fight him if you wish to. So yeah, it gives you a little bit of time pressure there as well, so you can't just loiter around forever. Indeed, you have to finish each thing in 3 minutes, or start to avoid or fight this big giant armored dude. Which again is by no means impossible, you can absolutely kill him. Here's a suppressor mod, that's nice. So you get mods that you can put on your weapons. Yes, that's also similar to something that exists, of course, in, for example, New Vegas. New Vegas also have the ability to silence your guns, if you so wish. And I accidentally put it on my doozy here. Huh. Well, shit, I didn't really mean to do that. But I guess I have a silenced doozy now. Great, I kind of wanted to save that for another gun. Huh. I don't actually think you can remove a mod that you put on a gun either, so that's dumb. And I also forget to reload. I truly am a genius, aren't I? Holy shit. I'm doing very well right now. So yes, the game may very well give you a few Fallout vibes. Fallout 3 and New Vegas, of course. The Bethesda ones. And that's certainly not surprising, because the gameplay does very much remind of those games, especially the sections that pertain to exploring vaults, of course, which is a rather important part of the Fallout games after all. They are rather core to that series. And the coolers here are of course very much inspired by the vaults in the Fallout games. I mean, it's a completely different art style, absolutely, but the gameplay does feel Fallout-esque. It very much does. It very much harkens back to those games, and is almost certainly directly inspired by them. The kind of core gameplay loop that you see in the vaults in the Fallout series is kind of here. It's the looting, all the characters that you kill have items as well. There's a lot of interactions with the various miscellaneous items. There are traps and mines, which of course also exist in Fallout. You can modify your guns, which you cannot do in Fallout 3, I believe, but in Fallout New Vegas certainly. You can go for a stealth approach or just guns blazing if you'd like to do so. There's a bunch of consumables, both in the way of food and medication, that gives you health and or buffs. You can also bind these to your numpad. Numpad? Yeah, who the heck uses a numpad? No, to... to your numbers, what? To your... to your numpad. That would be an interesting thing, wouldn't it? No, but you can bind it to your number keys. Either way, it does have some of what I consider to be the negatives of the Vault gameplay of Fallout as well, such as rather generic and unvaried levels. It does have some variation, I'll give it that, but at the end of the day, a vault is basically a bunker. There's only so much you can realistically do. That's actually a rather interesting thing, by the way. These things are loaded with ammo, as you see. You can't unload them, but you can just empty them. So if I use all the ammunition in this gun, of course, that will be an efficient way of using the stuff on the level. So you can be a little bit careful with the conservation of ammo, for example, by using the ammunition. So if you happen to be low on ammunition, you can just use the guns that you find on enemies and use up the ammunition in those guns instead of using ammunition to reload your own, and thereby of course conserving ammo, which I find kinda neat. It does not have a way to unload weapons, as far as I can tell. Pretty certain it doesn't. But yeah, it's pretty cool. It's kinda neat that that's a consideration at all, I think. It's interesting. Adds some strategy to something you might not think of. Yep. I do like the sneaking in this game, honestly. I really do. It's quite simple, it is. But it's kind of fun, honestly. And it works well, and it doesn't... The game isn't the prettiest. I don't love the aesthetics. You know, maybe this is a good time to talk a little bit about that, because I think the graphics may be a sticking point for some people when it comes to this game. Because they are obviously not high fidelity by any means. But they are rather stylized, though. They certainly are. They have this kind of shell-shaded boxy style, obviously, with these kind of big heads for all the enemies and characters and such. Yeah, I'm not sure what to even call it, honestly, but to be completely honest, it really isn't my style. This is a full suit, by the way, so this means that that includes both pants and torso armor equipment, or whatever. Most clothing just gives you some good attributes and stats, but it's a few that gives you a bit of a trade-off, such as one that gives you a lot of shoot, but has minus hit as a trade-off. So you're good at shooting, bad at hitting. Yeah, so there's traps everywhere, by the way, as you see. You should be very careful with that, but you can trigger them, either through tinkering with them. Now, if you tinker with a trap, you will be able to unload it and take a little bit of ammo from it as well. Otherwise, you will have to trigger it through some other means. You can, among other things, do things like hit it, simple as that. Just hit it with a baseball bat or something like that. That will usually trigger it. Or you can throw something in front of it or something of that nature. But anyways, I digress. I know there is this kind of Japanese art style called chibi, but I think that generally tries to be cutesy. And this game certainly doesn't come off as particularly cute, at least in my opinion. But I also don't know if that's a requirement for the chibi label, or if it's just a frequently coinciding intention to be cute with the chibi art style. I'm not entirely sure. The greaser uses pistol ammo, by the way, and yes, the different weapons does use different ammos, so there's of course shotgun shells for the shotguns, and there's pistol ammo, which of course all the pistols and most of the submachine guns uses, and so on and so forth, basically. I also got a swole, which will give hit up, but it will make you full, which means you won't be able to eat for a little while. Same with these are eatables, or consumables, but you eat them, which makes you stuffed for 30 seconds. That just means that you can't eat another thing for 30 seconds. Essentially, it's just a mechanic that stops you from filling your inventory full of consumables and instantly using them all, gaining full health whenever you get into trouble, as you could in Fallout. Pretty smart, I think. I think that's a good way to handle it. That said, while I don't appreciate the graphics too much, they are very clear. It's not difficult to detect enemies or see traps or anything like that. It's very clean. There's very little visual noise. You don't feel it's unfair that you get hit by something you didn't see, which certainly is a point in its favor. I managed to hit the explosive barrel and it blew up the robot there. You can kind of strategize in that sense. It encourages you to take a little bit more of an elaborate and considered approach sometimes, and not just rush in guns blazing haphazardly, which is kind of nice. I can appreciate that. But anyways, as I said, while I'm not a particularly big fan of the graphics per se, they are very functional, they do their job very well, and they don't really have any qualities that impede the gameplay in any way either, which is very nice. It's very much a point in its favor, for sure. Basically, my only visual problems is very much personal preference. I don't like how it looks, I don't find it to look good or pretty, but from a pure functionality perspective, it's absolutely adequate. Here we are, the classic World War II pistol, the C96, I believe, yes. I believe it was popular among pilots, apparently. Oh dear lord, that's not it. That is the Purifier. I completely forgot about him. I hopefully will be able to avoid him. Let's see if I can do this. So if you do this, it will soon stop shooting. Run. Run, 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 run. Okay. So yeah, his machine gun, or minigun, will take a little while to wind up. So you can absolutely avoid him. He also walks rather slowly. Yeah, I much rather have the Vault Clearer as opposed to the C96 here. So I'm gonna change those. The game does have a lot of inventory management, much in the way that you have that in something like Fallout, of course. You're going to switch between different weapons and loot things a lot, you know. There is a lot of inventory management in that sense. Looting is a big part of the game, so if you don't enjoy that, you probably won't enjoy the game. You can have the enemies fight each other, by the way. So the Purifier, for example, will fight various different animals and other creatures, and the different factions will fight each other as well, which there is a few of. So that's kind of cool. Grease gun. Okay. And here we have one of these mailboxes. So if I would like to, I could just put something in here. And it has this universal inventory, I suppose. So whichever mailbox you kind of access, the same inventory or the same contain the items will be therein. So if you would like to get something out of your run, or for that matter, if you want to store something that I could have gotten at this point, when I find a mailbox inside a cooler run, you can just store it there. So that's kind of nice. It allows for some strategic inventory management in that sense. And as you see, the guy here has a very large amount of HP. He had like 600 or something like that. So I don't necessarily have a particularly strong wish to fight him right now. So I'm just gonna try to dodge around him here, frankly. So I really don't want to fight those enemies with him right at my back, honestly. That doesn't seem particularly advisable, so I think I will have to try to lead him off somehow. Kind of gank him a bit here, and then just try to lead him off to the other side of the vault. Or the cooler, I suppose. And since he's walking kind of slowly, that will hopefully buy me enough time so that I can finish the rest of this floor and just get out. And no, you cannot hide from him, by the way. He always knows exactly where you are, because apparently he has some kind of GPS tracker on you or something like that. I don't know. So I think what I have to do is I will have to wait for him around here. For him to try to get me, and then I can go back and try to get out of the run, or out of the cooler, or out of this specific level of the cooler at least, so that he will stop chasing me. Thank you very much. Okay. So I'm just gonna wait here for a little while. Yeah. So the gameplay is very similar to something like Fallout, but basically is, well, essentially only the vault experience, which gives me a little bit of, it's a bit odd for me, because in my opinion, the vaults in Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, is by far the least enjoyable part of Fallout. The part I absolutely love in Fallout is exploring the giant open world, of course. Going into the generic vaults of Fallout 3, for example, is absolutely certainly not what I find to be the most enjoyable, by any means. Still, at the same time, this game does provide the most enjoyable part of that experience, because in my opinion, the most enjoyable part of those are usually the looting and consistently finding new useful items, right? So the first few vaults in Fallout, as far as I'm concerned, is usually the most enjoyable ones. And that's kind of the experience this game gives. Kind of due to the inherent nature of a roguelike, where you usually don't have a completely stacked out character when you enter the vault. So usually most of the things you will find will be at least relatively useful. I mean, you could enter the vault completely stacked out, I suppose, or the cooler, but at least I usually don't play it like that. Doesn't necessarily sound particularly optimal or fun, but you could. Depends how you want to strategize, I suppose. But since I do find it more enjoyable to kind of play with what I find in the vault anyways, I think this is a very enjoyable way to play this game, if I were to choose. Which, frankly, I'm very much allowed to do, thank you very much. So I already have a few cocktail buffs that I've gotten from previous runs with this character, which makes me more accurate when crouching, so that's useful for that guy. And, okay. The freaking tower in the top there. But luckily, he has a circumference that does not allow him to aim directly downwards. So it was quite difficult for him to kill me, which is very nice. Which, you know, that's good. I should have been hit by him in the first place, though, because I should have looked up and seen that he was there. But, you know, mistakes are always going to happen. Such is life. I am not going to claim to be an expert. Okay, so my second biggest complaint with the game is probably just the combat in general, I think. Those are my two big complaints with the game. It's the graphics and the combat. So what do I not like about the combat? Well, mostly that it doesn't feel all too impactful, frankly. It doesn't really have all that much punch. The recoil doesn't feel too great, honestly. The sound effects are fine. they're rather mediocre, but I guess they kind of fit for this kind of game at the same time. The art style and the style and design of the game kind of makes realistic and impactful sounds out of place. Do you recognize this gun, by the way? Yep, pretty much the 10mm pistol from Fallout 3 and New Vegas, isn't it? I think the inspiration is rather evident, frankly. At least I would hope so. But anyways, the thing is, this game obviously is very much inspired by and takes a lot of inspiration from, which is the Fallout series. It doesn't really have that great gameplay either. Or rather, it doesn't have all that great shooting or combat either. I do like the fact that, for example, the heads of the characters can kind of blow off. And I do like the fact that the robot at least kind of explode off their little attachments sometimes and so on and so forth. That's nice. It does add a little bit of impact. It makes it feel slightly more powerful. But at the same time, it doesn't have quite the punch I would like, frankly. But again, the same goes frankly for Fallout. That's not the strength of the Fallout series, and it's not the strength of this game as far as I'm concerned. I do like there is certain different aspects to the combat, yeah? I like the fact that you have mines, I like the fact that you have traps, I do like the fact that, again, there is some visual confirmation for headshots and so on and so forth. You know, I like that. But at the same time, the shooting itself doesn't feel too great, right? The melee, which this game of course has, you do have a few melee weapons as well, much like in Fallout of course. That's where the kind of inspiration is taken from. The melee isn't incredible either. You can hit someone's head off there as well, which again, that's cool. I like that. But if that's everything you have going for it, it's not that satisfying. The aim down sights aren't necessarily particularly useful on all the weapons, I must say. As you see, this one is terrible, right? This one actually obscures your whole crosshair when you aim down, which is just kind of odd. It's an interesting way to do aim down sights, I guess. Not necessarily what I would classify as ideal. But there you go. Ow! Dear Lord, could you stop with the robots? Yeah, if you're wondering what happened there, the Phaseroid has a chance of essentially stunning you, immobilizing you, which is absolutely horrible. It's very, very dangerous. So you certainly have to watch out for that. It will do the same thing for the enemies, of course, so you will stun the enemies, but I don't really care about that right now, because I'm not the one that's shooting with them. The enemy is. And I don't want to die. I think that's most of the things I have to say about the game, though. There's a few quests you can get, but there's not that many. Generally, your objective is just to get to the end of the cooler, at which point you will fight a boss and then move on to the next cooler. But there is a few quests that you will complete within the cooler as well. Maybe like collect something or find something. There is a very limited crafting system that honestly works similar to Fallout. Yeah, I know, crazy, right? Basically, you take a few different items you found and combine them to create some kind of maybe armor, or maybe you can get some kind of medication or craft something like that. So that's there, and you'll do that in your house. The comedy of the game isn't my taste. It's a little bit puerile in my opinion. I don't find it particularly funny, but I'm also rather hard to entertain, I think. I don't find all too many things all that funny. I'm a bit of a bore, I guess. So, you know, take that as you will. Comedy is very much a subjective taste. Okay, so let's see here. I think I have a few Medistim. Yes, so that's Medistim. Medistim. I wonder. Stim pack. Yes. Yes, it's a stim pack. It gives you health. Oh dear lord, what is that? Screw robots. I hate them so much. They are unequivocally evil. They will subjugate humanity. And we must destroy them. They very much are. Let's eat a tater. Why not? I have nothing else to eat anyways, so I might as well just eat one of those. Thank you. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't really have all too much else to say, but I kind of want to show you the rest of the run here either way, so I can show you how it works with the kind of cocktails. It's not like it's advanced, you just take a cocktail and then you doze off and you wake up in your house, but it would be kind of maybe nice to show you a few of the cocktails at least, and how they look and work and such. So I kind of just want to show you the rest of this this little cooler run, I think, and after that I'll wrap it up. But I don't really have much else to say per se, so I guess I'm just gonna show you a little bit more gameplay here, and I'll just wrap it up after I'll get out of the cooler.
Target acquired.
That's not great. Is this a dead end? It kinda looks like it. I guess I've taken a wrong turn at some point.
It's a fine day to die.
I'm sure it is. So why don't you go and die? It's a great idea, I feel. You can turn the SOB off, that is the purifier, if you want to, but I don't know, I kinda like having around. It's kinda nice to have a little bit of a time limit. Adds another consideration and makes it a bit more difficult. And you can kill him, of course, as well. Okay, so I think I'll just summarize my thoughts and opinion here, and you can decide for yourself whether or not it would actually be interesting or useful to watch the rest of the run. Well, I've had a decent amount of fun with it, I definitely have, but I would very much have preferred another art style and design. It's personal preference for sure. Some people might like this art style. I'm not to say that's wrong in any way. It's just not really my taste, and personally I would have preferred something different. Unfortunately, this kind of affects the gunplay as well. It's not realistic gunplay. It's kind of not that impactful in my opinion. You don't really feel the recoil there. Many of your weapons will have a knockback against the enemies, some kind of knockback effect, and they will knock you back as well, and you can get knockback resistance, which is interesting. It adds another dynamic to the combat, but it also looks kind of silly, and I'm not a huge fan of it, even though it does add some additional depth to the combat mechanic. I get that. The music is fine, it works very well as background music as far as I'm concerned. Sound effects are kind of flimsy as well, which kind of makes sense considering the art style. I think that's kind of just my thing, right? It's just not really my taste when it comes to the design of the game. You know, I don't like the art style, I don't like the sound effects that much, I don't like the kind of silly atmosphere they go for, I guess. It's just not really my taste. But maybe it's yours. And the thing with the graphics, of course, is that you can see on your screen for yourself. Would you appreciate the graphics? Do you think they look fine? Do you like the art style? Do you like the giant heads, for example? Do you often have a problem with weapon that perhaps doesn't feel all too impactful? Do you have a problem with combat that might feel a little bit anemic sometimes? I mean, I don't know. Do you enjoy the combat in Fallout, for example? I find that one to be rather anemic as well. So if you don't have any problems whatsoever with the combat in, for example, Fallout 3, then you may well enjoy the combat here as well. You may not even see it as a problem at all. You may think it feels absolutely fine. You may very well enjoy it quite a lot. I don't know. But anyways, that's kind of my conclusion. I do enjoy the kind of pseudo-permanent death though. I like the idea of having some progression and securing some things, but still losing quite a lot. You know, there's high stakes, but it's not everything you've collected. I think that works quite well, especially if you want to have a campaign that's perhaps a little bit longer than like an hour or so. So yeah, I think it's reasonably fun. I have a few complaints, but
I'll find you.
overall, it's still decent fun. I just would have preferred a slightly different design. Alright, so that's pretty much it. I'm just gonna complete my run here and show you how that looks. And then I'm gonna wrap this up. Seems like I've gotten pretty much away from the Purify at this point though, so that's kinda nice. He's quite far away. He's mostly dangerous when you fight enemies at the same time. Okay, so here we are. Here is the booze or the cocktails that you find. It's the different perks. This one, for example, this allows me to, well, carry more ammunition for a revolver. This one makes me faster, but makes me take more knockback. This one increases headshot damage. And this one gives me a little bit of bonus to my hit when I'm unhurt. And I think I'm gonna take this one. And there we are. That's a cooler run in Wasted. Well, that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. I've been Dexter. And this has been a casual look at Wasted, a post-apocalyptic pub crawler. Maybe I'll see you next time. Farewell.